So for this block, I was absolutely desperate to get stuck into those reds and those greens, so I chose these colours and got to work. So the process is exactly the same as it was for the first block and as it will be for all the other house blocks. You are basically pinning your stabilisers with the shapes on to the right side of your fabric, that's the pattern side, sewing around on the drawn line and then cutting them out, making a hole in the back and pulling them through. So here I am making the plant pots. And I think this is one of the trickiest shapes because you've got that really quite deep indentation there on each side and you want to get them level. I really enjoy this part. I love seeing all the pieces together because you can really get a feel for how they're going to look once they're in their final house block. And the trimming bit is a really, really favourite bit as well. You can just sit with it on your lap and snip. And I think one of my best tips here is to really try and cut the seam allowance bits down as small as you can, and when you've got corners, snip into them, cut them across on a diagonal to just get rid of as much bulk as you can. And when you're dealing with triangular shapes or circular shapes, really snip into those as well the best you can, and it will just help those bits lay nice and flat. This shape here, I'm going to cut the corners off, as you can see in the video, and then I'm going to snip two little tiny little snips either side where the bit of the planter pot comes in, and that is just going to help when I turn it through for those triangular pieces to just lay really nice and flat. I definitely should have used some smaller scissors, which you can see in the picture, they are actually right next to me, but hey ho. Once again, I left the circles till last, and there was quite a few in this block. There was 6, 3 each side of the house to make up the trees, and yeah, off we go again. Now, I still haven't got my circles completely accurate, or as accurate as I'd like, but I'm getting better with each block. And by the time I get to block 12, I'm sure I will have greatly improved. If you're sewing along with me, I'd love to know how you're finding sewing the circles and how flat you're managing to get them. I really took my time pushing out the seams of the circles, going careful not to put any holes into the fabric or to kind of split the stabiliser. I'm using my wooden tool here, just going around slowly, and actually in some cases going around more than once, just to try and get them to look as circular as possible. I'm definitely getting better at making these bias strips. I've made these little ones, which I've got slightly, a little bit of what the fabric is on the door to map on. So they're going to go on there. Let me grab my pins so I can pin that in place. Then the ends will get tucked under and, well, they'll get glued under. So I've made a little doorstep here, which I kind of like being a little bit wider. So I'm just going to pin that in place. That's literally going to sit underneath the door. And when I fold under my ends, I'll make sure that it is exactly the same on either side. So I think that's cute. So I've got my flower pots. I've put in the bias tape here. And then when it comes to here, I will fold that under. What does Lori do? So Lori has it underneath. So I'll probably snip it off and then it can just go underneath. In fact, let's do that now. So I'm just going to grab some fabric scissors. So I'm literally going to snip off. Oh gosh. Right, there we go. So snip that off and then pop my plant on there. There we go. So that is one whole tree done. Oh. Try and get them all facing the right direction. So I'm just going to do this other side now. So let's take these off. 1, 2, 3, and grab my piece of bias tape. Now, all I did with the other side is I tucked it under the centre part of the planter, and then I popped the top back on like that, and then popped a pin through all 3 layers, and is that in the center? I think that's slightly off, isn't it? This is the thing, you can get a bit carried away with trying to make this thing perfect, but actually it is a case of good enough, but not if it's something that's going to annoy you. If it's something that's going to annoy you, then change it. And I want these to be roughly the same height. So let's have a look. Yep. Click. Right. And then that one. Try and get them as central as I can. And then, oh, little end bit. And then, I mean, you can eyeball this. I'm only doing it roughly. Right, so that's going to go there. So I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to snip the fabric. Okay. And then pop the very top part on. There we go. You might remember in the first block I used the cross stitch, Lori Holt's cross stitch. It's a red cross stitch pattern for the background fabric. So I thought this block I would use a different one. So this is from the B Dots collection, Lori Holt's B Dots collection. And I think it's called Autumn. It's either, I think it's pumpkin spice or something like that. But it's basically tiny little orange and grey dots forming these little flowers. And I opted to switch it over because obviously the house is red, so I wanted a different colour for the background and just to give it a different look. So I'm going to be probably using 2, maybe 3 different background colours for my blocks. First of all, we need a cup of tea. Does anyone else have their tea this milky? Right, I'm going to start with the house, I think. Let's go big. Right, so I've got my glue basting. Oh, got my glue baste. My glue based it, temporary basting glue. I am going to start by gluing my house down. So let's do that. So I'm going to glue it and then pop the pin back in to hold it in position. Spending a few extra minutes where it's needed to get things looking as good as we can get them. So for the final few pins in, I just want to put one there, and I want to put one in the other corner for this chimney, and I think we're done. There we go. So that is all the pins in, and I'm just going to leave this for a little while now, go and do a couple of other tasks, and then when I come back to it later, we can look at actually doing some hand sewing. So I thought whilst we are waiting kind of a couple of minutes for the block to dry, now that I've glued everything and pinned everything, we could start having a look at what threads to use for the hand sewing. This was organised and it's kind of not now. Anyway, we'll gloss over that. Right, let's dive in. So I want a nice red to start off with for the edges, either red or white. I might use red for the roof and I might use white for the house because actually the edges are more white than they are red. So I think we'll go with white for the edges of the house, and then the roof area that is very red, we will use red. So I think that will work nicely. Now I picked up 2 different colour greens when I popped to the shop, because I knew that I was going to need a few different colours, and I think these are going to work lovely. So I think for the bottom part of the tree, we're going to be using this brighter colour, and then for these top 2, we'll use this slightly darker colour. So that's those picked. Now I think the browns are going to be more difficult. So let's start with this darker colour. I think that one would look quite good. In fact, I think that might work with both of those. So we'll go with that one. And this sunflowery fabric kind of needs, yeah, I think that will work. I think that's pretty much everything, isn't it? Chimneys are the same colour, so we can use this for the chimneys, the door, the tops of the pot plants, and then all the windows will just be a simple white. am actually allergic to nickel, and nickel is found in most sewing needles, frustratingly, and it's a really annoying allergy to have when you are a sewer. So we hunted high and low and actually found someone who supplies, or stocks and supplies, these needles here, which are actually nickel free. What happens when I use a regular sewing needle is I end up getting really sore fingertips to the point where I can't touch anything. And I was actually using them for sewing this on because I forgot where I put these, and I was finding that my fingers were red raw. So I spent some time last night actually hunting through my sewing room and making sure that I find these needles, and now that I've got them, I'm not going to misplace them. The reason that I mean, it's good that there's this alternative. They definitely are not as sharp as silver needles. But, you know, that's just one of the trade-offs. And actually, as long as you're using good quality quilting cotton fabrics, they work just fine. So where am I with my block right now? Well, I've sewn all of my tree foliage down. I've sewn the house down. I've done 2 windows and the roof. Did I do the chimneys? No, so I've got the chimneys left to do. I've done the door. So today I'm going to finish off the roof here and the windows and the planter. So the way that I found really helpful is to actually just gently roll the block so that I can hold it easier rather than trying to work my way around any other way. And just taking these tiny bites. These needles are a little bit thicker, so I just have to be careful that I don't end up taking too much of a bite into the fabric. But other than that, they're working just fine. So here we go, this is the block all finished. I absolutely love it. I'm really pleased with my colour choices, and actually I'm really pleased with the circles as well. So that's a wrap on block 2. I loved making it, and I'm all ready now for block 3, which from memory is the Pineapple House block. So I will pull the fabrics out and get stuck into that one. And I've actually managed to sew up a few of the in-between quilt blocks. So I've been dropping a few videos. So there's quite a few shorts on my channel if you want to go in and see what I've been up to. I've been trying to kind of sew here, there and everywhere in between, you know, lunch breaks and just before school pickups. So I've actually managed to get quite a lot done this month. But, you know, we've got to move on to block 3 now. So, as I said at the beginning, we'd love it if you'd sew along with us and just let us know if you are. And be sure to subscribe to both mine and Rachel's channel so you don't miss any future videos. For now, take care.